Cheers.
Cheers.
All right.
Cheers.
So excited to do this. Finally, we have nothing to do, right? So we're unemployed. Nobody's doing anything. And figured this was like the perfect time to be able to sit down and finally do this podcast, because we've been trying to do it for a while, but you're always running around doing one of your therapy sessions or teaching class, doing private, or I'm taking a nap. So it just, we can never work it out, right? But we're finally able to sit down and do this. So there's so many things I want to get out there, because I think that women need to understand that regardless of, there's a lot of excuses, not excuses, but there's a lot of mental barriers that especially women need to overcome to train jiu-jitsu, right? Number one, it's so related to wrestling, so it might seem not a sport that is appropriate for like ladies to do, right? Another thing is the closeness of it, and the fact that you are going to be training with other men, and that's sometimes an issue that comes up with the partners, right? So that those are all topics I want to hit them, but you were able to overcome all this. You were able to not only train, raise a family, achieve your degree, have kids, run 2 successful academies, get your degree on rapid transformation treatment, hypnosis therapy, but win Pan Americans, and do it all somehow balancing, life, man. So why don't you tell us a little bit of how you started and why did you start training jiu-jitsu?
Yes, well, thank you for having me. It's good to have this time off so we can finally sit down and do this. It's funny because people think that we train all the time because we live together, and that's not the case.
It was at the beginning.
It was at the beginning, but now it's not the case. So thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. So how I manage the things, I believe that you can do it all. I believe that if you really are passionate about something, you can actually make time for it. So for me, as in looking back, now that you put it that way, it seems like, oh my gosh, I had done a lot, but when you're going through it, it doesn't seem that intense because you're going through it. And when you're passionate about something, it doesn't even seem that hard. It's just managing your time and managing that what is important in your life, right? So when I started jiu-jitsu back in, a lot of people remember the exact day when they trained jiu-jitsu, but because I was at the academy most of the time, either picking up the kids or just cheering you up there, for me it was like a natural transition. So I don't remember when I started training. I know it was almost 13 years ago, but don't remember the exact date. And how I managed to do it, it was just let it happen. Sleeping 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours a night, and just that's it.
Right. Yeah. Well, so it's hard to pinpoint the exact date that you started doing it, because you would train. We would train together at home, and then you would do like a class here and there, and then something else would come up, and then work would get in the way, or childcare would get in the way. So so that you couldn't train, right? And then you would pick it up again later on.
Yeah, but so, I think I mean, I know, like I'll share this story. Before we had our second child, I was training on and off here and there, and then once I got pregnant, I had to take all that time off. So I can tell you that after, when Elias was 5, then I was more consistent. I remember that when he was able to train in the academy with the kids in the kids class, I remember that's the time that we started training all together, like 4 or 5 times a week, and that was 13 years ago.
Okay. So what would you say, what is your number, what is your number of practices per week that a person should hit if they want to see significant improvement in their game?
3 and more.
3 and more.
At least 3. I think at least 3 times a week. It will give you a good sense of what you're supposed to be doing. 2, I think you forget a lot, but 3 or more, that's, for me, it's not a magic number. There's no magic number. It's, every training is personal, right? If sometimes training comes natural to a person, sometimes it doesn't. So if training doesn't come natural to a person and struggles to retain technique, to understand technique, obviously you need to give yourself more time. So 3 times and more, 3 to 5 times.
More.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And And so let's go back to like to started to train. What prompted you to start to train, right? And like what I wanna ask is, did you, when you started training, so not only you had two hurdles to overcome to train, right? So like number one, training as a woman, because when you started training, um you were the only female in the room training, right?
Right.
And number two, when you started training, you were also a person of Mexican descent, Hispanic descent, right?
Mhm.
So when you talked about when you talked about that you're doing jujitsu, or and trying to break it down for people to understand, what I used to do is I would say I'm doing jujitsu. People didn't understand what it was, so I would say it's like wrestling, and people were like, "Oh, okay." So I'm assuming that you did the same, right?
Yes.
So you're like jujitsu, and people like just give you this blank stare. So then you're like, it's like wrestling, and then so now they have an understanding of what that is. But then they would give you this weird look of,
Yes.
how can you, as a woman and then of Hispanic descent, be training something that, number one, it's not ladylike, right? And number two, it's like, how are you coping? How do you how did you deal with that?
Okay, it's a good question, because one of the things that, especially the people, Hispanic people, when you tell them it's like wrestling, they imagine that not Olympic wrestling or
Pro
college
wrestling.
wrestling, they imagine pro wrestling. So it was
I
even
had that.
worse.
Yeah.
It was even worse. They imagining that I was doing pro wrestling. So first, the first question, why brought me to train jiu-jitsu? I like the challenge. I was always a hyper active kid. I couldn't sit still for anything. And I think jiu-jitsu gave me that understanding that you can use every part of your body and feel it and come alive, even the bottom of your feet. And at the end of the day, you just finish exhausted. So I was looking for something that gave me that high, per se, that I want to use every inch of my body.
That's I love how you said that, like even the bottom of your feet, right? Because when people talk about like when you do jujitsu, you literally
You
use from
use
the top of your
every
head to the bottom of your feet. Like I remember, like I was rolling with this really good brown belt from Phillips Academy, and Freddie was sweeping me, and I look at my hand, and I'm like, well, he's got this hand is strapped, he's got my foot, my head. My head. So as he's like sweeping me, I remember using my forehead to stop it. And then like I love how Freddie's like, "Hey, bro, how'd you stop it?" I was like, "My face."
yeah,
So yeah, man. So you're using,
every
with
inch
great
of your body.
ingenuity, right? You're using every part of your body,
Yeah.
right, to do jujitsu, right? So that's what you loved about jujitsu. And then I had the same thing. I remember talking to my family members, right, about doing jujitsu, and this is when I realized I was uh, like I don't know what the terminology in English, right? I think it's like fuck ugly, but like because I had an uncle that introduced me to pro wrestling. I visited him in Mexico City. He took me to see a pro wrestling match, and he's like, "Mijo, you should do it." So I did train pro wrestling. But I told him later on, I was like, I'm doing jujitsu, and I love this gentleman, right? And he's like, and again, he didn't understand what jiu-jitsu was, so he was like wrestling. I was like, yeah, it's like wrestling. And he goes, "Mijo, with the mask, right?" So he's telling me, it's like, dude, you're so ugly, like please tell me you're using a
Oh my
mask. So
gosh.
but there was such a care in his voice. He was like, "With the mask, right?" And I was like, "Yes, of course." And he was like, "Oh, good."
Good.
Yeah.
There's no mask in jiu-jitsu.
So then but yeah, but that's a fruitless conversation, right? Where you say it's like wrestling, and then they immediately
Yes.
go to pro wrestling. Like, to me, like our conversation is done. Like, if that's all wrestling wise, like then I'm done.
And at the beginning, I spent a lot of time trying to explain to people, okay, that's not what I do. It's not pro wrestling. It's like Olympic wrestling, like college wrestling. And then I will say it's like judo. And some people were not familiar with judo, so then I had to do, model a little bit, like, oh, it's something like this. But it was not accepted. I think it was, people gave me that weird look, like, why are you doing those things? You get all kinds of looks, but I didn't care. I was there because what I was experiencing. I was there because he gave me the opportunity, like I said, to explore, to understand, and to challenge every part of me. So I didn't care, but eventually I just lost you know what, I didn't care. For a long time, I wanted to share with the whole world. This is what I do. It's amazing. But because they didn't understand, I just stopped trying to explain them what I did. And I just stopped telling people because they couldn't understand, especially being Hispanic, they're like, why would you do something like that?
Right.
I was raised in a way that girls should be girls. And I was always the odd one. I never liked dresses. I never liked to do my hair. I like to play with cars. I like to, jump from the rooftop of the house. I like to play with the boys. I like to wrestle. So I like the rough sports.
Right, like a tomboy.
Like a tomboy, yeah.
That's what they would
so
call it
it was
here,
always,
right? Yeah.
my mom, bless her heart, she wanted to dress me with dresses. And finally she understood that I was not a dress girl. So she finally started she will make her own clothes. She will make little nice dresses for me and my sister. So she finally made pants for me and then dresses for my sister. But it was, it was a natural, for me, it was a natural process. And because I was an odd kid growing up and I was not like a girly type of girl, and I was always hanging out with boys, it was easier for me to dismiss the criticism and say, you know what, I don't care what you think, I'm just going to do what I like.
Right.
And that's how I overcame that stigma of like girls should not be, playing rough, because girls should be girls, should behave like ladylike. I am a ladylike.
Right. No, you
But,
can be. So it's so funny, right? Because it's like we'll go to like this. We'll go to events, and then you show up with makeup and dress, and people are just like stunned and looking at you. And I'm like, yeah, dude, she can look like a lady when she has to, or when she can, when she wants to, right?
When I want to.
Yeah,
yes.
but because majority of the time people just like see us like walking in shorts or the gi and then teaching and going. So so that's how you overcame that.
So just one point, I do love to play dress up. I do love to do my makeup. I do love to dress like a girl, like a lady, but it's not all the time.
Right.
Only when I feel like it.
Well, it's your office work, right?
Yes.
Is your dress is like, it's like your business attire is a gi, right? Or shorts, for whatever we're doing that day. So when you finally started training jiu-jitsu, one of the things that I, like I said, it's like there were no other women in jiu-jitsu. I remember maybe like you started training and like one or two would come in for a week practice and then disappear. What was your perception? How did the culture accept you as a woman training jiu-jitsu? Because you were rolling with the guys. What was your experience like?
Let me go back to the beginning of starting jiu-jitsu. And it is a funny story because when I started training on and off, classes here, classes there, it was fun. Everybody respected me. Everyone was like, I don't want to say like a pet, but like a pet. Oh, she's trying to try class.
Oh, that's cute.
That's so cute. Then
did you not feel that we're giving you the respect as a practitioner?
I did not. I felt like they were just kind of like, oh, it's Manny's wife and she's just trying the class.
Right.
And then when I went back after having our son Elias, and I was more consistent, I want to say like the first couple of weeks, they were the same thing, like, oh, okay, we're not gonna roll that hard. So I felt that they didn't get the respect that I was needed. And then I started pushing the pace a little harder. And when I started catching people, then they started hitting me hard with technique and, pushing me.
Did you feel that there was an overcompensation where now they've really started going hard?
They were.
Okay.
They were never trying to hurt me, but they were trying to push me hard. And I felt when they make the switch in their mind, they say, okay, she's going to stay. Now, let's see if she belongs here. And now I felt they started putting the pressure and said, like, okay, let's see if you belong with the wolf, right, per se. And I remember, I want to say like a couple of months after we started training, and then they started pushing me really hard and putting a lot of pressure. I remember being so scared going to practice, like even my stomach hurt. But I kept going because it was challenging. But yeah, there was times that I felt they didn't disrespect me, but they didn't respect me as a woman. I think they were trying to see if I will fit in the group.
Which was very common back in the day.
Yes,
it was very common.
Like
that's something that people don't understand is you would start training jiu-jitsu and people didn't talk to you for like at least 2 to 3 weeks. And by the end of the third week, people were like, oh, you're still here. Okay. And then that's when people bothered like getting your name and showing you anything. Because at first there was no white collar training. It was train to fight. Yeah,
you know.
right. And people didn't. There was no distinction of like, doing it for the love of the art, right?
Yes.
But
So back then it was more like you're learning how to survive here and how to fight. There was no guidance. You had no
mm,
mentor to tell you, okay, you can do these. You had nobody to tell you, you can do this, don't quit.
mm,
If you didn't hang with the wolf, you're just out. And that was
mm.
it. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. Um,
Yeah, there was
but
no
I,
student retention, right?
yes,
Because
yeah,
also there was no pressure to have a good or a nice training facility,
yeah.
right? So like today, there's like bathrooms and
It was
uh,
disgusting.
you
One
know,
bathroom and
one
for all the
bathroom
guys and
and
myself.
the tub was open, so whatever happened, people could hear it, right? But it was there was no what's the word I'm looking for here? There was no intent of having like a nice facility.
Yeah,
So if like somebody left, you were paying so little in rent that you
yeah.
could afford it as an instructor, right? So if somebody quit, you were just chuck them off like, oh, they were weak.
And the women were not appreciated in jiu-jitsu. Like women, it was unheard of. It was unheard of. I mean, you had to be a special person to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm special, but you had to do that in order to stay. I think you had to be very strong mentally and physically if you wanted to stay. Like you really had to have a passion for the sport. Now they were, I don't want to say that they were animals, but they were the training was hard and they push you.
Right.
I was always bruised. I was always hurt. I was always trying to to compensate my strain. And I think that's, as my time went on in training, something, a bad habit that I picked up, it was trying to be stronger than my opponents.
Mm.
So when I started jiu-jitsu, it was really hard for me to retain technique because I needed to survive and I needed to do whatever I needed in order to get out of a bad position or overcome or submit my opponent. So I did always felt that I was using a lot of strength.
I think also as an instructor, you didn't know how to deal with a female student,
Yeah.
And I think that's something that with time has developed where now you're having to set ground rules for when you train with a woman. It's like you're telling them, like, hey, if you're rolling with a woman, match her strength, match her weight, match her technique. If she catches you, she catches you. Check
Yeah.
your ego at the door. But back then it was that like people would just use everything they had against
Yeah.
you, right? So
And the technique wasn't very finesse. So there
right,
was a lot of brute moves. There
right,
was a lot of brute moves, and it was no finesse in that technique.
right.
So there's something that I always had. I know I never thought in my conscious mind that we will have our own academy and we will be instructors. But I always had a dream. If I ever had the opportunity to teach, I'm gonna teach technique because technique is beautiful. Because technique will prevent any injuries. So yes, it was a lot of brute movements, and yeah, you had to tap way before they, as soon as you saw, for example, a kimura coming before it even happened.
Right, you were tapping
had
right away, right? Because they were gonna crank it, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So what was your experience in competition and how long did it go before you stepped into competition?
Yeah, so I I like competing, but I was really insecure of myself. And my first competition, I did it 6 months after I started training. And it was just that I saw the whole team going to compete. And I was always saying, I want to do it, but I was always scared of it. So one time I said, let's just freaking do it. Let's just go ahead. If you don't do it, this is my mindset.
What pushed you into competition? Was it just because so many of us, like including me, were competing?
Yes. And that was one of the big things. It was seeing the whole thing. I wanted to be part of that, right? Because I have been training for 6 months. So I wanted to still prove that I belong to the group. So I said, I need to do it. That was one of the reasons. But the other reasons is because I was a chicken. I was scared, and I wanted to overcome that fear. So I said, what best way to just go out there and compete? So I remember being angry at myself because I was so fearful of nothing. So I remember being angry and say, you know what? I'm just gonna do it because what is on the other side that I'm missing out? And that's something that I always been with me. I'm not a very brave person, but I always want to know what's on the other side. And it doesn't matter what it takes to get on the other side. It doesn't matter how scared I am, I'm gonna do it. So 6 months in training, I went out there. I had two matches, I think. and I won first place. So I was really excited.
But you had 2 matches against the same person.
No,
No? Okay.
I had 3 matches actually.
3 matches.
2 against the same person because I won, and then she
fought her way back into the finals.
to the bracket. Yes,
right.
There was 3 of us. Yes,
right.
So I did, and I won. I took first place on my very first match.
Which was very common back in the day because again there was not a lot of women training.
Yes, The bracket was the same of us, and all 3 of I think one of the girl I never saw her again. One of my matches, but the other one. We're still together, we're still in the same bracket, we're still the same age, you grew up with your training opponent, with your opponents,
Wow. So for women that start training jiu-jitsu in today's day and age, right? So obviously I think today it's far more accepted that women are training jiu-jitsu. But again, I think that they're still facing some of the hurdles, right, to overcome, such as, we're training jiu-jitsu and my partner at home feels a little insecure about the closeness of the sport or something like that. So do you feel that some of that is addressed by having the women only class, or how do you deal with your students, or what would be your advice for a woman out there that wants to do jiu-jitsu but has a partner at home that is unsure about the appropriateness of it, right?
But there's no appropriateness because there's a lot of closeness. There's a lot.
But there's no ill intent. There's no sexual. There's no sexual. There's not a sexual nature to it. It's like you're fighting, you're grappling.
You're fighting, you're grappling. And I think going back to your first at the beginning of the podcast when you asked me how do you deal with being Hispanic, right? That was something that a lot of people didn't understand. I don't know if it happens in other cultures, but in the Hispanic culture was a lot of, oh, you are so close to a man. Why would you be doing that? And I think that was one of the biggest criticisms that I got from our Hispanic community. But how did you deal with that? Well, first of all, I think it's just a dance. And if I love dancing, and I think when you dance, it's just a form of art. There's nothing sexual about it. It's just energy that goes through it. And I think jiu-jitsu is the same thing. I mean, it's just an art, but not only an art because you have to be fighting. So I believe that when you're in a panic mode, especially for beginners, you don't think about anything sexual. You just think about like, oh God, I want to survive this. Or on the other hand, you want to impose your will. You say, you know what, I might be small, I might be a woman, but I want to show you what I can do. So more than being sexual, I think it's you're either in panic mode or you're either in a panic that in a mode that you want to brag about what you think you can do.
But what would be your advice to somebody that's having issues convincing their partner?
Their partners, yes.
Right.
You have to have a good communication. Come and see me for an RTT session. You have to. I think insecurity. It's a lack of communication in the couple. So it is hard to tell somebody this is nothing in sexual, but it's not about explaining what you do. It's you need to work on the relationship, because if your partner doesn't accept what you do, because let's say you're having contact with other males, you have to go back and address the relationship. There's something in the relationship that is already having problems, and most likely is the communication part of what I'm doing and what this is mean to me. And it is not the sport. It's just had to go back and address that as a partner. What advice would I tell them? It's again to have that open communication and tell them this is what it is, and tell your partner, I really love you and respect you, but I want to do this. I
really want to do this.
I enjoy jiu-jitsu, and I don't know, right? Because I don't ever subscribe to any gossip, any drama going out there. But I think having a women's only class is really powerful because it gives the partner more confidence. They say, okay, she's training with women. And by the time this woman goes trained with the man, she'll have more technique and be more secure and understand what she's doing. And the partner will understand, hopefully by then, that this is a form of sport. Does it make sense? So I think women's only classes are really good for that matter. But it goes back to talking to your partner and saying, and tell them that you love them and you respect them and this is for you. And again, that's a relationship issue where you need to
communication is the key, right?
And also as in a relationship, you have to feel that freedom. You have to feel the freedom to, we are good together, but we need our time apart. You can do things on your own. I can do things on my own. And I know that at the end of the day, you love me and respect me, and you're going to come home to me. So I think it could be, I think it's deeper issues that go there.
Okay. So being a trailblazer, right, in the sport of jiu-jitsu, not only the sport of jiu-jitsu, but starting, and then again, people need to understand that, for example, like the Dami Academy has been around for 10 years, right? And 10 years, it might seem not like a long time, but it really is in the time frame of jiu-jitsu related to women, right? To a women program. So you started the first women-only program in Tucson, and also one of the first women-only program in the whole state. So what were some of the hurdles that you faced, being that you started it as a white belt, right?
Yeah, blue belt. I just got in my blue belt.
Just got your blue belt. Okay, so did you start your women-only program as a blue belt?
Yes.
Okay, so you started your women-only program as a blue belt.
Officially.
Yeah. What was some of the criticism that you received because you were only a blue belt and you were teaching a program?
Well, number one, the biggest criticism that I got, it was that it will never work. Why would we need a women's only program? I think that was the biggest thing back there. People laugh, not at me, but I know there was some comments on Facebook saying like, why would we need a women's only program? If a woman needs to learn how to defend herself, she needs to understand the strength of a man.
Which is hilarious, right? Because it's very same people now, not out of understanding, but shamed into it, now have women only programs in their academies, right? Yeah.
So that was one of the things that they would criticizing me. Why would you run a women's only program when a woman needs to understand the strength of a man, needs to understand how it feels to roll with a man, how it feels to defend herself from a man. And then I never cared that it was a blue belt because I had your support all this time. And I think I was very confident on my teaching skills. I will come to you and ask you, I'm going to teach this. What do you think about it? It's a legit technique. I was always concerned of teaching something that it wasn't going to work. Even when I do women's self-defense seminars, I don't like to teach things that they're not going to work, or teach things that a woman is not going to be able to perform in a stressful situation. So if you have been to my women's only seminars, I teach them to speak. I teach them to be confident. I teach them to awareness. Because by the time it comes to hitting somebody or taking the hands off of someone, you did something wrong. Right. If you didn't realize that somebody was close to you, and by the time you want to defend yourself, it's going to be a little bit too late.
So situational awareness is a
huge. That I like to teach. Right. So how do I deal with the criticism? I want to say it hurt a little bit, but I didn't care. I didn't care because I wasn't creating a women's only program for people to see me. I knew the value of the women's program. I knew what we were offering. I knew what Jiu Jitsu gave me, and I wanted to share that with the world. I understood that you can defend yourself against a guy if you train, and if you understand technique, you will be able to understand leverage and timing. Something that you cannot understand when you try to defend yourself all the time. I mean, I did understood when I started training with all the guys, but it took me longer. I think for me, it was like a long walk before I could understand timing, before I could understand technique, leverage, before I could understand breathing. So if I always thought, if you can teach this earlier, right, the fundamentals of the women's program, I think they will stand a chance. Because if a woman gets attacked, or if a woman wants to train and go out and train with the guys, I think if they have these fundamentals, they will enjoy Jiu-Jitsu. Right. So that was my philosophy, opening the women's only program, because I knew that Jiu-Jitsu was an amazing art. Right. I knew what it can offer.
What were your goals as a practitioner when you first started? When you started Jiu-Jitsu, did you start just because you enjoyed it? I think we all start just because we enjoy it, but at some point then we start developing goals, right? Yes. What were some of your goals when you first started doing Jiu-Jitsu, just as a practitioner?
I wanted to sweep you.
Well, we failed.
I wanted to pass your guard.
That's still not going to happen.
Anyways, my goals as a practitioner, I think when I started, I'm thinking all the way back. I was in a in a nice, comfortable, we had a nice, comfortable life. We just had our kids. You know, Yeshua was 7, 8 years old, and Elias was 5. And I had a nice, comfortable job, and we had a nice, comfortable home. So my goal was, okay, what else can I do? I used to go to the gym and lift and do yoga and do cardio kickboxing, but I felt something was missing. So going into jiu-jitsu, I was looking for that challenge. I say, okay, I know how many enjoys, how you enjoy being there. And my first one was, what else can I do? What else can I do? I mean, I'm comfortable here. We have built all this from almost nothing, just you and I. Now, what else is out there for me? What else can I do? So that was my first goal, thinking like, what else can I do with myself? What else is there out there for me? And then as I started doing jiu-jitsu, then I evolved, of course. I never made it having my next belt a goal.
Mm-hmm.
That was never my when I went to jiu-jitsu and I started training, right? And it was so freaking hard. Then I did my first competition. And then when I did my first competition, I felt, okay, how can I make this better? How can I be relaxed when I compete? And that was my next goal. I want to be more relaxed when I compete. And then it was the weight cutting. I want to stay at weight. How can I do that? So my goals change over time from, I want to see what's out there for me, to be more specific. Like, how can I cut weight or be at weight all the time? How can I be more calm? How can I sweep? I love sweeps. I love sweeping. I love sweeps. I love it more than submitting someone. For me, it's sweeping them. So then it changed into, okay, how can I make a sweep?
That's so funny that you say the sweeps. I was talking to Philip yesterday, and there's something in my reptilian brain, like when I'm rolling with somebody and they sweep me or almost sweep me, like it's just like, oh, it's on now, right? Yeah.
And it is almost like poking the bear, right?
It's poking the bear, right?
It's like a bully move in a way, because you think you're in the bottom and the person on top is like, I'm gonna pass the guard, I'm gonna go to a dominant position. Then you sweep, and now it's on, because the person on top gets so mad.
Right. Yeah, no, 100%.
So that's how my goals evolve. And then I never made it my goal to lose weight, but then you lose weight just because. I started with a gi that it was an A3 when I started. I wasn't chubby. I was like 170 pounds when I started jiu-jitsu, because I was lifting and I was.
But then you also just had your second child, right? So you had your second baby, so you still had some of that, yeah. So which brings us to our next point is, like, for a lot of women are they're interested or curious about jiu-jitsu. How long should somebody wait post birth to start training?
Well, I'm not a doctor, but I will say, if you're already active, maybe like 2 months, 8 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks. If you're not very active, maybe 3 months. And if it's a natural birth, but if it's a C-section, of course you have to take more time, start slow, because the nature of the sport.
Would it depend on what your level of activity was pre-birth or pre-pregnancy, right? Yeah.
For example, I started training jiu-jitsu, I don't know if you remember, on and off before I got pregnant. I remember, like, I made a commitment and I said, okay, let's do it. And I trained about a month, 2 months, maybe 2 months. And then I got pregnant. But because it was only 2 months prior, I didn't continue through my pregnancy. I quit completely doing jiu-jitsu. Nowadays, I think that if I would have been training for a couple of years and I have gotten pregnant, I probably would stay with it, because I wouldn't have known how to move, how to drill. So I quit completely. And then when we had our son, I had to wait because he couldn't stay still.
Right.
He couldn't keep it anywhere.
Right.
So
well,
that's what
childcare it's a whole different issue, right? But just as far as your body,
as far as your body,
you would say 8 weeks. You would say 8 weeks to start at least doing the conditioning.
12, and then about 12 weeks after, 12 weeks, 3 to 4 months after, to start rolling. A little bit of rolling,
right?
And then childcare is another issue, because you were training all the time. I was there with you, but because I had to keep my eyes on our kid,
on the kids, right? Yeah.
I couldn't train.
What are your goals now as a practitioner, right? So it changes. Your goals, I think, that change through the belts, right? But for you as a black belt and an academy owner, what are your goals now in jiu-jitsu?
As a practitioner and as an owner, there's 2 different goals, right? As a practitioner, of course, I want to keep sharpening my sweeps. I love sweeps, and timing. I think for me now is going, changing my techniques with timing, because sometimes you force them, and forcing them is okay. It's fine, right? If that's what you liked. But I like, again, I see jujitsu as a form of an art, and I like the perfect timing. Once you find a sweet spot, that every time that you hit the perfect timing, it is an amazing feeling. So right now I'm chasing timing without having to force too much. And it is like going back to being a white belt, because you go back to the beginning and you start creating some movement, and then, am I gonna hit it here? Am I not gonna hit it here? And then you transition to something else if it doesn't work, right? If you don't want to get your guard pass per se. So that's what as a practitioner, one of my goals, I like my jiu-jitsu to be beautiful, to be a form of a beautiful art. And I like my jiu-jitsu to be the perfect timing, at least 90% of the time. On
Mm-hmm.
everything that I do, I like to fall. Not that I don't like to use a lot of energy, but again, jiu-jitsu is to work with the energy of your opponent, right? To move yourself away instead of pushing for you to kind of create those angles. So right now, as a black belt, is for me creating those angles with more, being more smooth when I create those angles.
How long into your training would you say that time started showing up, where your moves started like linking together?
I'm gonna say a little bit as a purple belt. As a purple belt, that's when I realized that's purple belt was my best time. I could see things that I could see, chains. I could see submissions. I could see everything. I was calm. Maybe that's why I was calm. My purple belt, I was calm. I think I felt that I grow a lot as a purple belt. That's when I started seeing and chaining things together. 1, 2, 3 moves. 1, 2, 3, 4 moves. So that's one of the. I think I have been training for 6 years before I got my purple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's how long it took me.
Was there a very specific thing that prompted your growth into starting to chain things, or would you say that it was just having sufficient technique and all of a sudden feeling calm, or you didn't go into a panic mode in the middle of the row?
I think it was a little bit of both, and because we used to train every day, and you put sometimes so much in your brain that it's hard to put things together. But I think what happened is the practice. I shut down my part of learning brain for a little bit, and I say I'm going to practice what I know. And I think just exposing myself, practice and drilling and not rolling hard all the time gave me that opportunity to see those chains. Because when you fight hard all the time, sometimes you miss that, because you want to be winning all the time, because you want to be on the top all the time, and you miss those opportunities. You create them by forcing them, which is fine, right? That's your style. That's fine. I think I did that all the way until I got my purple belt. And then at my purple belt, I said, you know what? I want to try something different. And I think just making the switch in my mind, I say, I want to try something different. I want to be calm when I'm doing these moves. That was when, for me, the magic happened, when I was able to see transitions and putting them together, and the timing and all those things. And of course, as you practice more, then you want to fine tune those things. And now as a black belt, I want to fine tune those things.
So you always did really good in competition throughout all your belts, right? You always were at least in the podium or winning first place. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until brown belt when you ended up getting you won the Pan American Championship, right? But your Pan American Championship in the absolute, which is where you fight people from all weights, right? From the lighter to heavier. You lost in your division. But then there was something happened, because you lost in your division, and then there had to be a change in your mind, because you fought the same person that you lost to in the absolute. What was the difference between in your mindset, between fighting your division where it cost you the match versus going to the absolute division and submitting everybody?
Yeah. Can I cuss in your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. We can do it. Fuck you want.
I said, well, first of all, as soon as I lost my match, I said, what the fuck am I doing? That was it. That's all that I said. The reason I lost.
Why?
Because I was so, I had a game plan. I say, okay, I'm going to get the takedown. I don't want to pull guard. I got guard pulled. A lady pulled guard on me and went deep half. And I I didn't panic, but I said, okay, you know, and then I disconnected. I want to say I disconnected. I started having this conversation in my mind instead of being in the present moment. There's something that I learned about jiu-jitsu, being in the present moment. It's like a flow. The minute you stop and think, the minute your body stops. Because when we do a sport like that, we have to let our body flow. You have to have no mind. You have to be mindless when you when you do jiu-jitsu or any physical sport. You have to throw the mind out through the window. You have to be no mind because your body already knows what you're supposed to be doing. So I was having that conversation with my mind, like, okay, she pulled guard, she pulled me on deep half. Okay, fuck, I got swept. And then instead of opening my game, I I hold on. I felt a hold down for safety. That's what I felt, safety. And by the time I decided to open my guard, it was a minute left. And I tried to do the scissor sweep, and I couldn't get it. Right, she was shutting down my hips. So it was a minute. I look up. By the time I tried to set up something, it was, you know, 30 seconds left on the clock. And then I tried to get the sweep harder, and it was 10 seconds on the clock. So that was it. It was fast. So as soon as I was done, I said, you know, fuck, what the fuck am I doing? And when I say what the fuck am I doing, for me it was, why you have to be safe? What is the sense of safety? So I waited. I signed up for the absolute, and I said, "There's no sense of safety. There's nothing to lose here. I mean, if you lose at the academy all the time. Who cares?" So that was the mindset. I said I had nothing to lose. I'm going to release the need to be safe, the need to control, and I did. That's all that I did. I said, you know, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and fuck it. Whatever happened, it happened. I felt a release on my game. I didn't went for anything. I play my game and let my body do what it needs to do, what it knew how to do. I pulled guard and I went into every single submission that I love. So for me, it was releasing that need to control, the need to say this is what I want. I don't care. I know what I want. I don't need to think about what I want. I think that was the big mind shift that happened, and I always said I like to know what's on the other side. And when you try to control the outcome, you already know what's on the other side. So you're kind of cheating yourself. So this time I said, I'm not going to control the outcome. I just want to know what's on the other side. So I let go of the safety and I just open up my game and let it flow. And now we see the results. Yeah.
There you go, man. What was it? What was one of the biggest changes in your life after winning the Pan American? Was there a difference in how people treated you in the Tucson community, in the jiu-jitsu community, as far as like other women? Because I don't think that you want to go into that, but there was a little bit of an attitude that you encounter from some of the women because from the women from Phoenix, because you started your program as a blue belt, right? And one of the things that people might not know is that you started your program as a blue belt while working a full-time job, and then also going to school to achieve your degree, right? So how did you deal with that? How did you deal with winning the pants and people's reaction to you?
Yeah, competition, I always competed for myself. I never compete because, let's say we have an academy, and I want people to know I'm a competitor. No, 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 no. I think competition for me is something personal because you grow all the time. So I competed a handful of times and I won. I always medal, and won first place. So I know, not that I'm a good competitor, but I know the outcome. I know how it feels to be in the first place. So when I compete, I do love to be in the first place, but I don't do it to be in the first place. I do it because I grow mentally a lot. My mind grows a lot. So one of the biggest criticism was that I hadn't compete a lot, right? Because some of the ladies out there, they used to put themselves out on the line all the time and whatever. But I think I have my priorities and I do things on my own. I do things because I love to do things, not because I need to show somebody, what I can do. No, I do things. I don't care what goes around me. So one of the biggest things was, how come you don't compete a lot, right? And how come you open your academy when you're a blue belt? Well, like you said, I was working full time. I was going to school full time to get my degree in human services to finish my, I went to university for full time. And I had the kids were little, 10 years ago, they were little, they were kids. And I had to run the house and all those things that you have to do, competition wasn't on my mind. For my most important thing was to grow my business, and of course my education, and of course you guys, this is my first priority. So winning that, it was just, I just smiled. Of course everybody respected me, and it was a good feeling. um, but I'm not a person that, again, that lives out of her achievements. So not to dismiss what I have done, but it's like you have to, it needs to be done. Like,
Right. Well,
this is,
I think it's important to realize what makes you tick, right?
yeah.
So
I don't need praises from outside,
yeah,
from the outside
it's
world.
not only that, but it's also what motivates you, right? It's like, how are you going to sign up for a tournament that doesn't get you excited?
Mhm. I
There's
think,
how are you going to sign up for a competition that doesn't motivate you to
yeah,
train,
before
right?
I forget, can I share this story time? So before we continue, and I forget this because this story just came to me, is when we opened, I think I was a white belt when we opened our academy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I started kind of, um, not officially kind of like a women's program. I used to train at 6 a.m. and I invite people to come with me in. It happened to be girls. Well, we just train girls. Um, but when we opened our academy, and like you said, when you compete, it has to tick. Um, so at that time, there was a tournament that came by Tucson, and it was the Grappling X. And at that time, that was a big tournament for me because I had a mission, and that was one of the tournaments that I did with intent. I had my intent was to show what we had at Damio, and we took 4 kids to compete. It was Yeshua and Elias and 2 other kids, Tevian and Malik, and it was a handful of adults and myself as a white belt. And with the kids, we almost only 4 kids. We took everyone. We almost got, from all the schools, I think we almost got in the top 4. And it was only 4 kids. They went through on the gi, and on the no gi, they went through everyone. And then with the adults, we did very good. I think we got like 1 or 2 golds. But I had a mission, and I said, this is what I have. This is what Damio offers. And I just went and swiped. I think I had to compete against a blue belt.
A
And
guy, right?
yeah,
A
no,
guy.
no, no, a girl. This is
No, you fought a guy in that one too.
I fought a guy on the Desert Quest.
Mm.
On the Desert Quest, I had a guy in my bracket, but the girl, I fought a blue belt girl on that bracket, and I just submitted her in about 2 minutes, because that way that made me tick. I said, yeah, this is my academy. We just opened Damio. That was in 2010, and this is what we bring to the community.
Right.
And that was one of the things that I had an intent to win, and I won.
So what would be your piece of advice for somebody out there, male or female, that is thinking about jiu-jitsu but just can't commit to take that first step towards training, just starting jiu-jitsu? What would you tell them? And especially, so the second part of that question is, what would you tell somebody at the beginning that is within those first 6 months of training, right? First 6 months of training, what's your piece of advice for that person?
Have fun, enjoy. I think a lot of people think that they should know something. I should know this, I should know that, or I should be in shape. Jiu-jitsu is gonna get you in shape. So that's number one thing. Know that jiu-jitsu is gonna get you in shape. No matter what you do outside jiu-jitsu, if you lift, if you do yoga, if you do CrossFit, it's not going to prepare you for what jiu-jitsu gives you. Jiu-jitsu will make you will get you in shape. So number one, that's that.
Fight shape, right?
Yes, yeah. Yes. Don't be discouraged because you power lift over here, but then you're dying over here. It's different. Understand that it's different, and your body will adapt to it. And the other one, learn to learn. You shouldn't know this because it's new to you. So when you understand that you shouldn't know this because it's new to you, then you're more relaxed and calm, and then you will be able to learn. So learn to learn. That's it. You shouldn't know this. It's new to you. Have fun and enjoy it. As a white belt, you should always have fun and enjoy it's like trying something new, like learning a guitar. If you never play a guitar before, you're not gonna learn overnight. It takes practice, and you're excited to even touch the guitar, and you go to the music store and you buy the most expensive guitar. Enjoy the process. And then the technique will come.
What's one of the biggest things that Jiu Jitsu has taught you? That's one of the questions that came in for you.
Patience. That made patience. And like I said, the advice that I give to the white belts, it taught me to learn how to learn, because we shouldn't know this. And I came with Jiu-Jitsu thinking that I should know this. I should know how to bump and bridge. I should know how to do a technical.
I should know how to fight, right?
Yes. Yeah. No. It's not. So I learned how to learn, and it is a skill on its own, and it is an art on its own. So if you have that mindset that I'm here to learn, you will have fun.
What would be one of your what would be your advice for somebody that just is having problems learning, right? So you say, okay, learn to learn. But I think the problem is that a lot of times people look at Jiu-Jitsu like going to LA Fitness, right? So like just going and fight, and then somehow you're going to make progress through that. And one of the things I try to change people's minds is that no, you need to come in and understand coming to practice is like coming to college.
Yes.
This is a learning experience, right? So what would be one of your advice for somebody that is having problems organizing their thought process coming to practice?
I would actually recommend for the person to do private sessions, to do, to invest in themselves, because otherwise they're going to end up being frustrated and then leaving the sport. And the sport is beautiful and it gives you a lot. I mean, you can use the same skills that you learn in Jiu-Jitsu in your life, in your everyday life. So one of them will be invest a little bit on yourself, like do a private or two a month, or maybe once a month. Ask questions, pull higher belts aside and asking questions, not about technique, but about how you deal with, and be honest with yourself. Be really honest with yourself and say, you know what, have somebody that you can talk to and be honest and say, I'm having a hard time learning. So you can understand that, something.
We all go through that, right? We all go through that difficulty.
I was not coordinated. Like if people see me now, they're like, but you look so grateful when you teach technique. I was very uncoordinated. I wasn't an athlete, that I couldn't even walk a quarter of a mile without huffing and puffing. I couldn't do a squat with my weight. So it was a learning process. But the difference is that I had the passion. I wanted something different. I wanted greatness. And it doesn't matter that I didn't have it there, but I knew you can achieve it by practice.
You can create it.
You do create it,
yeah. Create this. Beautiful. Yeah. All right. Well, this brings us to the end. I'm glad we did this.
Thank you.
Hopefully people understand that Jiu-Jitsu is for you, but it's your own personal journey and you have to make it your own. And by making your own, there's got to be a set of rules that are only apply to your journey, right? So like what worked for me, what worked for her, there will be some common ground there, but a lot of times it's very person specific, man. So
it's very individual.
And your coaches can definitely point you in the right direction, but you have to write your own book, man. So cheers.
Cheers. Grab your own book. And till next time.
Till next time.